Looking forward to it.
Hi, and welcome to Mons and Nasman's podcast. Today we have our guest, John Cousins. He's an entrepreneur, investor, award-winning best-selling author. This is really interesting. It's a lot of the topics that's perfect match for this podcast. So, do you invest in SaaS AI? And have you heard about Palantir on Nasdaq?
Yes, I'm an investor in Palantir actually, and I like that company a lot. The word Palantir, they took that from a token. It's from the Lord of the Rings. It's a stone that can see into all kinds of things, and that's what they named the company after. I can't remember the founder's name. Alex Karp, brilliant guy. And that's a very, very good company. They are on the forefront of using artificial intelligence, machine learning to go through for companies and governments, look at all kinds of data. They use it for the military. There's a lot of applications that they're just even starting to find out. They have several platforms, one that's more for government and then one that's more for commercial. And I've played around with it a little bit, the platform actually, but they're just coming up with tons of use cases, and it's a great company. And the stock has just gone up in the last maybe 6 weeks here or so, quite a bit. It's a good one. It's also a good one to sell options on. I like to take long positions in stocks and then short positions in the derivatives in the options, do covered calls, sometimes cash secured puts, but mostly covered calls, especially in this market that's been rising. It's been a nice market to make what they call a conditional dividend based on it's the premiums that you get from selling the calls, and Palantir has been a good one to do that with because it's quite volatile. There's a lot of volatility, which translates into that's the proxy for risk, right? And so the premiums on the options are quite high, which is nice. So yeah, I love that company. Are you invested in that company?
Yes, I have stocks in Palantir since a month back, so it's been a really successful investment.
Yeah. Well, you invested at the right time. I've been in Palantir since it went public, and I really like it. Yeah, one of the original investors is Peter Thiel, who's a famous investor too. Are you familiar with him? He's a really interesting character. He he was part of what they call the PayPal mafia, the guys that Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Max Lifchin, a few others. There was about eight of them. Reid Hoffman. They created PayPal and they sold it to eBay, and they each made tens of millions of dollars. And then they started to use that money to invest in other companies. And so they called them the PayPal Mafia. They basically started all kinds of companies. Peter Thiel took his money and he was the first outside investor in Facebook. And he made a fortune in Facebook. And then he started Palantir as well and has made another fortune there. So really brilliant guy. He actually taught a course at Stanford, as a visiting entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur. Stanford brought him in to teach a course, and he taught this course on entrepreneurship and the importance of that first starting, going from nothing to something, and how crucial and key that is, and how magical that is as a thing we can do in this day and age. And one of the guys in the class took copious notes, lots of notes and stuff. And after the course was finished, showed those notes to Peter Thiel. And Peter said, let's write a book based on this. And so they did. They took those notes and wrote a book. And that book is a very, very good book called Zero to One. It's all about going from zero to one to making something. And I think it's one of the best books on entrepreneurship. And that fella's name that took those notes is Blake Masters. And then Blake Masters went on to run for the Senate in the United States in Arizona. He lost, but he was backed by Peter Thiel, and so he's become kind of a prominent politician in the U.S. But he got his start. He was a student at Stanford that took very good notes, and Peter Thiel was so impressed with him, they made a book that's now, I think it's one of the best um, uh, entrepreneurship books. Have you read that, Mons? 0 to 1? It's
No,
very, or heard of it?
not yet.
Oh, it's a very good book. I highly recommend it. Yeah, so that's the, Alex Carp, Peter Thiel, Palantir, just a great company, and really on the forefront of using these new incredible machine learning tools and big language, large language models and things, and finding really great applications for sifting through lots and lots of data to come up with some meaningful decision making information.
As we are talking about Elon Musk and Palantir, it makes me wonder, because Elon Musk is now like an efficiency politician in the US. He's got a responsibility area, and will he use could he use Palantir to make US and the government more efficient?
Well, that's a great question, Mons, and we're looking forward to seeing what he does. Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk have been charged by the new administration, Donald Trump as president coming in, to analyze the government and go through and try to cut a lot of fat out. And with any bureaucracy over time, they tend to get bloated. They tend to get a lot of people tend to get sort of lazy in their jobs. And Elon Musk certainly has been known to drive his companies very, very hard. I mean, when you think about, so we think about what he might do with government as to what he's done in the private sector with SpaceX. I mean, who would have ever thought that a private company could create a commercial rocketry industry like to compete with NASA? It used to be that you needed a national government's backing to do some kind of moon, the moon project, the Apollo project here in the United States, or something like that, to create rockets. And he went back to his big thing is first principles thinking. So going back to first principles, breaking down all of deconstructing all projects back to what the first principles are, and really examining them and saying, is there a better way to do this? And then building back up. And with SpaceX, he did that incredibly successfully. I mean, they had a lot of, sort of fail fast, fail forward kind of attitude where they, a lot of the rockets blew up on launch. They couldn't get them to work, but they learned from every single failure or mistake, you might call it, and kept progressing and progressing until now they have incredible payloads that they're being able to put up into space. And he does it with a very limited team, which is really incredible. I mean, really drives him very hard. And what's come out of that too is they have about over 6,000 satellites that they've launched and made the Starlink, satellite constellations and clusters for delivering internet all over the world. I mean, you can get internet now on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean because of Starlink. It's been very successful in helping in the Ukrainian war that they could get information via internet because of Starlink. And that's a company, because he has this ability to do the payloads with the rockets, he was able to put all these satellites into orbit and make an incredibly successful component of SpaceX. I'm also an investor in SpaceX, and make this, innovative internet delivery system. Absolutely remarkable. And actually out here where I live, we have a dark sky community where you can't have light pollution at night. And so we see the stars just incredibly. And sometimes we see those trains of, Starlink satellites going across the sky. And some people have mistaken them for, UFOs and things, but they go in like a train across the sky. It's just remarkable. So he's really been successful with that. He's been successful at, who thought that they could take on the entrenched car companies and make a car company, an electric car company that could compete. And when you look at most electric cars, they've been kind of like, boxes and not fuddy-duddy. He came along and made this beautiful Model S, incredible luxury sports, electric car, and then the Model 3. And these are like the safest cars made. They were for years, Car and Driver said the safest cars. And they're just remarkable. And he took on all of the big car companies and made one that worked. I remember the movie Tucker, about the guy Tucker who tried to, compete with the major three car companies in the United States, and they just squashed him. And he was able to do that. And he took over a car company. It was kind of failing. Tesla was not doing so well. And he was a big investor. He took it over and he made that rock and roll by, going in and looking what everybody did and saying, you can stay, you have to do better, whatever. And so he's a cutthroat manager, but he's been very successful. The same thing he tried to do with Twitter, X. In fact, his component of PayPal was called X back then. And so he really likes that SpaceX. He likes the X moniker and changed Twitter to be called X. And he's looking to make that into a sort of a global payment system and all kinds of things, not just a social media platform. We'll see how that works out. But he went in and shut down all of their, servers that were just for backup, and fired half of the workforce or whatever, and then see how we can rebuild it. It's almost like going back to first principles. Like, let's get rid of all of this and see which areas then we need to work on. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, how that applies to government, and if it applies to government, and if it can in a meaningful way, that could reduce a lot of government spending, and that could have some beneficial effects. Now, it could also go incredibly wrong too. I mean, a lot of economic development and prosperity has been based on public enterprises supporting a lot of jobs, and then those people, buy houses and buy food and all that kind of stuff. So people that have jobs in the government, that's very kind of it's stabilizing for an economy. Once you say, if you fire half the people or a third of the people, or they're looking to reduce the government from a $6 trillion budget to a $4 trillion budget, taking a third off of it. That's going to mean a lot of people that are going to be looking for work, and it may mean a lot of people are going to start to try to perform better, to try to keep their jobs, and to report that, that their jobs are very important and they have to be there. But the people that leave, are they going to be on the unemployment rolls, or are they going to find other jobs in the private sector? And what that'll mean is a disruption for the economy, we're yet to see. But it's certainly an interesting time, and it's going to be a different take on government and how it operates. And for a long time in the United States, they've been saying that we need to have business people in government because business people really know how to operate something, and politicians really don't know that stuff. That's sort of the argument. And we're going to see how that works. This whole "Make America Great Again." Well, great. Okay. Now it's time to put up or show up, show up and put up. I want to see these guys perform and do something great. And, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and all the encouragement, but now it's time to actually, perform, and we'll see. There's a lot of things that happen in government that are difficult. I remember when President Truman, after World War II, was the president, and the next president was Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower. And Eisenhower had been the general, in charge of all American troops in the Western Theater and all. And, in the military, it's a very, very strict command and control. You give an order, everybody down the chain does that. And Truman, mused that, poor Ike, that's what they called Eisenhower, Ike. Poor Ike, he's going to come in here and he's going to give orders. He's going to do this, do that, do that. And none of that stuff's going to happen, because in government, it's much more squishy. There's lots of palace intrigue, competing agendas, and people are going to, maybe not, they don't have to do the direct order, that you give. They don't have to actually perform that. In the military, you have to, or else you're insubordinate and you get, court-martialed and either shot or put in prison or something. And it's not the same type of penalties in government. So people that come in and have this idea about how do you give orders and how that chain of command works in government, it's much different. And so we'll see how that all plays out. We're going to see that whole drama play out in real time, right, Mons, in the next several years. So
Yeah, that would be exciting. And talking about disruption, you have your product, your company, I think, interested in working in higher education, because higher education is expensive and it even beats inflation. It could cost hundred thousands of dollars. Uh, what's the product that you're creating?
oh, thank you, Mons. Yes. Well, I started out as an engineer, electrical engineer, and then I became an entrepreneur to build products, based on technology, because I've always been a techno optimist and love technology, and technology's been evolving so quickly over the last, several decades here, that there were all these opportunities that I saw to create, products and companies. And so I did that, and then I started to teach in business schools. I got my MBA, my Master's of Business Administration, from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, which is an Ivy League school, a very prestigious school here in the United States. And that degree, I went there for 2 years full time, right? I quit my job. I was working for ABC Television, the big television network here. And at that time, there were 3 television networks, no cable TV or streaming services or anything. They were very prominent. That's how information was delivered to the homes. And it went back to school, quit my job, and I was making very good money. I had a very good, job. And so I lost my income. I had to pay the tuition, and I had a young family that I had to support for those 2 years. And, I look back and it was like, I dug myself about a $400,000 hole. I went through my savings, I took on some debt, and it was like, that was really interesting and great, but boy, it's risky and challenging and put a burden on me to do that. And so I don't, I started to question whether that was the right way to do business education. I learned a lot, but I thought I could have learned a lot more. I could have learned a lot of it in an easier fashion too, maybe. And so not everybody has that opportunity to do that. So as I was making companies and things, I started to teach. My sister was teaching finance at a college, and I thought that sounds really interesting, really fun. You have students, you tell them about what you're doing, and just help them to develop. I love being a manager because I love to develop people's skill sets, and so I thought that would be another way to approach it. So then I started looking around. I got some jobs teaching in night schools, in universities, and then during the day, and that kind of grew. I went over and taught in China at a wonderful university there for a semester, and as I was doing that, realized the textbooks are like this thick, and 800 pages of corporate finance, say, or marketing, or strategy, and they're interesting intellectually, very interesting subjects. But as I was out in the field and, being buffeted around and having to make a million decisions very quickly and be very practical, a lot of this material didn't seem to fit with what I did day to day. I took 2 companies public on the stock market, and I was a public company CFO and CEO for 15 years. And, I realized that, this is not how it gets done. All that reporting, the accounting, the strategy, how do you do a financing deal, whether it's for debt or equity or something in between, like a, preferred equity or a convertible debt. All those kind of things are done very, very quickly, and you don't have all of these time to think about it and ruminate about it and make all these charts and diagrams and all that kind of stuff. And so I started to take those books and say, I can boil this down to 10 pages of what I actually do on a day-to-day basis. And the other things are very interesting, but if you have a context of the basics and the fundamentals, then you can sort of start to accrue all these nuances and details and have a context to put them in, instead of having all the details thrown at you at once and you have no idea what's important and what's kind of less important. You know, you have no valence, you know. And so as I was teaching, I realized I could, you know, I would ask questions to my classes when they first came in, and the students would all panic, like, oh no, the professor asked us something, and they throw out buzzwords to try to, you know, and I realized they really didn't know what they were talking about. And so I'd sit up there at the whiteboard and I'd write a few things. And I say, this is what a balance sheet is. This is what, you know, these are the fundamentals. And afterwards, I'd see the light bulbs go off, and that was such a satisfying thing. Like, and people say, you know, I've had 6 accounting courses, and this is the first time I really understand what financial statements are. And I realized there's a different way to teach these things. So that's where I started to, my company is called MBA ASAP. And MBA is like a Master of Business Administration. So it's the business skill sets, you know, marketing, negotiation, strategy, finance, accounting, you know, all those different things that we need to be good business people. And then ASAP, and that's a American phrase for as soon as possible, you know, it's short for that. So, you know, a business education as soon as possible, MBA ASAP. And so I started to put courses online, and I started writing a bunch of books and publishing them through Amazon, which has a wonderful, for writers, a wonderful publishing platform called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, where you upload your manuscript, and the manuscript can be as simple as a Word document, you know, or a Google Doc, you know, and then they have a cover builder where they help you, you know, it builds a cover, and you publish your book, and then you can see if people like it all. So it's very simple, and they print paperbacks and hardcovers now. They call it POD, print on demand. So they print one copy when someone orders that book. So you don't have to print. In the olden days, you'd have to print 1,000 copies to cover the fixed costs and then hope you could sell them. And you'd have them in your garage or something, and you'd put them in mailers and send them out. Amazon does all that for you. You have no working capital in inventory, because you don't have that. It's just when somebody orders one on demand, they print it out. So you have no risk in publishing these books. So I publish the books, I put the courses online. Same thing with the courses. I just use YouTube videos or video things that I would do with my phone at a whiteboard, and then edit it in iMovie, you know, a simple movie program, upload them to a platform like Udemy. And once again, you don't have to pay. They take a split when a course is sold. And so there's no real risk or upfront money to do that. And so I started to do that, and little by little started to get a lot of people taking the courses, finding out what people liked and what people didn't like so much, and what they didn't like so much, I'd refine, and what they did like, I'd double down and make more of that kind of content, and have made a nice company out of that. And I can deliver these business courses and business knowledge and let people stack their skills and upskill for companies that want to have, you know, better employees. I can do that very inexpensively, because once I make one of these content derived things, you know, they're electronically delivered over the internet, and so I can sell them very reasonable prices, like $100, and the books for like $20, and ebooks for like $5, and people all over the world can get this material. And then I talk to them over the internet. And then I've built a community too. So there's that peer-to-peer interaction, not just me talking to people, but they can interact with their peers. So I have this community that's going called MBA ASAP. And all of those things they've really started to knit. And, you know, you get to sort of an inflection point, a critical mass. And now it's there where I have enough students. I've had well over 35,000 students, and I'm in 165 countries. I'll have to go look and see how many students I've had in Sweden, but quite a few. 165 countries. I mean, literally all over the world. I have students in Madagascar and the Maldives and Mauritius and places, you know, that I didn't even know about. And it's lovely to interact with these people and to give people the access to world-class education that they can do at their own pace. They can watch one video, they're all bite-sized, 5 to 15 minutes, and little by little, they could do it at their own pace. If some people want to do it really fast, they can do it in 3 weeks for a course, and some people maybe take 6 months and watch videos on repeat a few times until they really understand it. So it's been incredibly satisfying as a business, and I couldn't do it without all of these new tools that are available. Even my iPhone, right? My phone it has a video camera that has dematerialized into the phone. We all have that, right? And so I can make videos, I can edit them quickly, I can upload them, and then they can be disseminated all over the world for not that much. It's basically costless. Once I make a book or a video, a digital copy, I can sell 10 copies, or I can sell 10 million copies, and there's no more fixed costs or variable costs that I have to worry about, really. It's really incredible. So I've been able to take advantage of these platforms, and now I'm using a bunch of AI tools and AI engines to make interactive in my course. I've taken all the material I've written 62 books now, incredible, and have hundreds of hours of video of me, explaining things. All that material has been loaded into an AI engine, different AI engines. And then there's my voice has been synthesized using 11 Labs, their incredible voice synthesis tools. And so I have an interactive chatbot that people can query, students can query, and then it will talk in my voice and explain exactly what they want to, maybe something they missed or something they want to know about, and will, from my material, talk exactly to the point they want. So it's one-to-one kind of interaction now, but at scale. So it's just remarkable. I'm actually have a negotiations course that's coming out using another AI engine that is taking all of my negotiations course materials and other negotiation course materials and things, and it's actually a video and audio. It's an avatar of me. I've had to record myself and record myself speaking, and they've made a digital avatar of me, so it looks like me talking, and people query, ask questions, and I respond with different types of scenarios for negotiation, or case studies, or negotiation techniques. And I think negotiations is one of those base skills, fundamental skills that people need to know. We don't get in life, we don't get what we want, we get what we negotiate. And so we really have to have fluency and skill set of being able to negotiate well. And so this is another one-to-one tool, and it's even me talking just like this, and it recognizes, and I respond, me talking in my voice, respond in 120 languages. So whatever language, all of my courses up to this time have all been in English. And like you, Mons, you speak incredibly good English, and I'm so impressed that people around the world have English as a second language and can comprehend it and express themselves so well. But I think this is going to be great because it'll allow people to actually interact with me in their native language. So, somebody talks to me in Mandarin, I respond in Mandarin. Somebody talks to me in Swahili, I respond in Swahili. And all of that is just from these new tools, these artificial intelligence tools that are literally cutting edge. I couldn't even think of doing this 6 months ago. It's just remarkable. So I'm very thrilled with the progress of technology and where it's going. I know there's a lot of, worries that we have about artificial intelligence and general artificial intelligence, and, maybe take over humanity, and what destructive, things that misinformation and disinformation campaigns can have. But for me, as a techno-optimist and trying to push the positive side of these technologies, it's a remarkable ride. It's a remarkable time, Mons. I can't believe it,
Really interesting, John. How about the two companies that you brought up public? Are they on Nasdaq, or which market are they on?
Well, they were on NASDAQ. One of them was, they started out over the counter and then moved up. One of them has since gone out of business. It was called Advanced Optics Electronics. And the other one as these companies do, took it public. It ran public for about 10 years, and then actually took it private again, in a private equity deal. It's interesting, the public markets, when I started doing that, public markets were a really good way, and I did them as direct listings. I didn't do the traditional IPO, initial public offering, where you get an investment bank, they line up, all the stock, and they will line up the traders and all that. I just wrote the prospectus, put it out, I had a bunch of investors that I could, market to, and then I found the market makers and actually just, got a trading symbol, filed the prospectus with the Securities and Exchange Commission, got a trading symbol, and started trading and building up the market, building up the market makers, which actually do the trading, and then built it up from there. And as a CEO and a CFO, you always think that the market doesn't appreciate your company that much, and the stock is undervalued. And in many cases, that's true. You're trying to, promote this story, and you want everybody to see the vision that you see, but the market is very cold-hearted, and people put a valuation on your company that you don't think is actually, enough, right? That's basically just being, you're always driving to create more value. So when you see that the stock, the stock market valuation is here, and the stock market valuation is just basically how many shares are outstanding multiplied by the price, right? And you think the valuation of the company is here. Well, this extra bit can be captured if you take the company private, right? So that's been a big trend in the last 20 years or so, private equity, right? Where they'll look at companies that are trading public and say, oh my gosh, the latent value in this conglomerate, if we split up these different divisions, we can unleash that value, and we can, triple or 10 times the value of this company. So they make an offer, buy out the stock, take the company private. They no longer have the reporting requirements and things. And then the company can, redevelop and maybe sell a division to pay for, buying it. And then you're left with something that you basically have gotten for free. And that's how that's why private equity has been so popular as a venture, as a capitalist tool, and unleashing value. So I took the company private again back in 2016, and then I stepped aside, and it's actually now housed in Texas. So yeah, but that whole experience, running companies from an entrepreneurship standpoint, taking them public, running them as public companies, understanding how the stock market kind of values things and the reporting requirements and all that. By reporting requirements, I mean that every year, every company that's on the stock exchange is required to publish a 10K, they call it. It's an annual report with audited financials that show exactly and they're very strict rules, how the company's doing, what the big risks are, what, is going to happen in the future, any, lawsuits that the company's involved with, all that kind of stuff goes into this report. And that's something great to read as an investor. They started to do, and so understanding that, then I got on the other side as an investor and liking to invest in the public markets, because investing I do angel investing too, and venture capital, but those kind of investments, your money's tied up. It's not liquid. It's tied up for 5 to 7 years or whatever, until that company hopefully has some sort of liquidity event and exit, they get bought or they go public or whatever. And then you can get your money back, hopefully at, a multiple of what you invested in. But that's very risky, and your money's tied up for a long time. In the public markets, you can invest in Palantir today, and 2 months later, if you need that money, you can sell it and you get your money out. And so your money is liquid. And I love the liquidity of the public markets. And I really enjoy reading those annual reports and finding out about companies, listening to the investor calls. And every quarter, the CEO and the CFO get on with investors, and anybody that's an investor can get on these calls. I think you can even get on the calls if you're not an investor, if you're thinking about investing. And, they're over the internet, and you can listen to them say, what the company's doing, what went wrong, what they're going to do better in the near future here, And they're fascinating calls, and reading the 10Ks. And I have some courses on investing too, because I'm just so, it's amazing. It's amazing to me that we as just, regular people can invest in these companies, and you can buy a piece of Palantir. You like Palantir, it's a cool company. You'd think that that would be some exclusive thing that was just held by some elites, but it's publicly traded. You can go and buy those shares and become an investor. It's just amazing that the democratization of investing, and now there's no brokerage fees to invest. And I thank Robinhood, for the trading platform for that. But now Charles Schwab and E-Trade and all the other ones had to follow suit. So you can even buy one share and you don't have to pay any brokerage fees. So it's very easy for and accessible for anyone to get involved in investing and become, participate in the capital markets in this growth. And I would think that that would be something very exclusive and people couldn't get involved in it. And but that's not the case. We all can. So I really like, and I learned about by filing and writing a bunch of 10Ks and 10Qs of the quarterly updates to the 10K. I really became intimately familiar with the structure of them and how you do the reporting and the accounting, the financial statements, and working with outside auditors. And so now, I really like to read them because I can piece them apart and find out which companies are doing well and which companies are not doing well from that, and which companies are good investments. And so I have a course on how to read a 10K and also a course on how to invest. And because really, once you get these business skills, one of the best ways for a value to employ them is as an investor. You go in, you say, I like this company because they're in these markets and they got these great management team and they got great, technologies, and they're going to do well. And then you can make bets, you can invest there, and those investments over time, tend to grow. So it's a very wonderful way to use the business skills that you have to create wealth for yourself. So yeah, those two companies are no longer public, but I got to tell you, that's a wild ride. Being in the on the CFO side and CEO side of a public company is really quite a challenging and exciting thing to do. It's one thing to be an entrepreneur, and it's another thing to be running a public company. I got to tell you that.
It's a really exciting story. I was thinking about my son. He's in, I think it's called high school, and
Yep.
he's in business. He's probably going to university, but instead of going to university, can he buy your MBA course, or do he need to do some other studies on the university before he starts the MBA?
Well, yeah. My course, the material is relatively, I have a bunch of courses, but it's accessible to someone at the high school age. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that's good. If there's one thing you can see, you can test for, not very much money. Is this something that I'm really interested in? And instead of saying, I'm going to go and do a business education, and you spend, $30,000, and you're going along, and you realize, oh my gosh, this doesn't really interest me. I'd rather be reading, literature, or I'd rather be studying music or whatever. And so it's a good way to test the waters. Like Warren Buffett says, never test a stream with both feet, right? Because it might be deep. You're going to test the waters in a way that you could say, okay, this is something I'm interested in, or this doesn't really, capture my imagination. That's one reason. And then if it does, this is a great preparatory tool so that you're ready for the kinds of material that you're going to get in a university program. Because sometimes in a university program, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. Suddenly there's a rush of information. And if you've never been acclimated to it at all, it's very difficult to take it all in. I remember I was an engineer, right? And the reason I went to business school, well, I always wanted to, but I finally decided now's the time. I picked up the ABC annual report and I looked through it, looked at the balance sheet and the income statement, the cash flow statement, and I realized I don't even know what these things mean. I cannot read these things. And I didn't like that fact that there was this whole world going on that I didn't know what it was. So I decided to go back to business school and learn how to read the financial statements and read a financial report, which I did learn, and it's been incredibly valuable to me. So it can be preparatory in a way, so because when I went to my first accounting course at Wharton, right? The first day, the guy's up at the board, the teacher, and he just starts whipping away, doing all this stuff. And I had never been exposed to accounting. And a lot of the people that went to that MBA program, they had business as their undergraduate, and they had been working for an investment bank or something like that. And they've been in this environment. I came from an engineering thing where I was building, broadcast facilities for a television network. And I had good technical skills, but I didn't know any of this stuff. So the first month or 6 weeks, it was just anxiety for me. I was just poring over these textbooks, trying to get up to speed, trying to keep my head above water. And I wish I had this that's why I built it, because I wish I had them, from my experience. So I think it'll be a great preparatory thing. That way you have at least the basics when you go into a course, and then you can assimilate the information that they're giving you better and perform better, because it's important to get good grades and it's important to perform when you go to university. So for those two reasons, and then also for people that maybe can't go to university or don't want to go to university, say they're running a bakery or an auto repair shop, and they have a business and they have to talk to their accountant and they have to figure out how to get customers. So they have to figure out marketing a little bit, and they maybe a little bit of strategy because they want to grow their company or something, or figure out how do they compete with the auto shop down the block. It's good for those people too that aren't going to take that route. It's not an alternative to a university education. There's a university education takes years and goes into deep dives, and a university is ultimately a safe environment for personal growth and development and those type of things. So it's not a direct kind of either or kind of thing. I still highly recommend university if you can do it. It's a wonderful experience and very much well worth it. But it's also very expensive, and a lot of people don't have the time to do it. But yes, my material is at a level that a high school person can understand it and learn from it and assimilate it. And it's a low risk type of endeavor because it doesn't cost that much, and the time commitment isn't. You can do it flexibly over time. So yeah, a lot of my customers and students fit into that role where they're early on in their career, they're aspirational, they're looking at what might be available and trying to figure out what they want to do. And arguably in a capitalist world, capitalist society, whatever you want to do, some business skills are important. When you talk about skill stacking, maybe you're a musician, but if you have some business skills, then you know how to book your next concert series, or how to cut a record deal and negotiate that, all those kind of things. Mick Jagger, it's no accident that the Rolling Stones have been incredibly successful. Mick Jagger went to the London School of Economics. He's no dummy. He understands those kind of things, and he's cut great deals for them as a band. You look at other, all these tragedies of exploited musicians like Jimi Hendrix or whoever, who never made any money from their records and ended up dying young or whatever. The business skills can help anybody. You can be an artist, you can be, a baker, whatever your skill set is, your basic skill set, skill stacking, some business skills on top of that, and with that can make you much more powerful and make you, potentially more successful. And those things will make you more happy, right? Because life will be going in a way that's in accordance with your aspirations and dreams. And so I really think that just some basic business skills can really help just about anyone.
That sounds really great. I was having some question about EdTech and the AIs you use for helping people to get answers. I've been talking to different people about this EdTech with AI, and when will we have an AI that can analyze us and find out where we are in our learning and take us step by step to the next level? Because I think today many of the training AIs, they are prompt based, so they answer questions. But when will we have an learning EdTech AI that analyzes us and finds our weak sides and help us overcome?
That is a great question, Mons, and that's exactly, I think we're getting to that point now. These two tools that I talked about, my chatbot and then this negotiations course, they are developed in that way, especially the negotiations course. It analyzes, there's a whole curriculum, and it analyzes what from the interaction, what the student understands and what the student doesn't understand, and will iterate on the things, like you say, the weak spots that they don't understand until it's comfortable that they do comprehend that, and then move on. So it's exactly what you're talking about, analyzing, because we're all different and we all have different ways of learning. Some people are visual learners, some people have to do, there's all kinetic learners, there's all these different types of ways that we learn. And to have tools that can say, well, maybe this video will help, or maybe if you read this thing, it'll help, or this, and different ways of, digesting the material until we understand it. And that's also, I think, a big thing is that we don't understand things linearly. In one of the drawbacks of going to a lecture in a university, say, is the teacher is up there talking, writing on the board or whatever. And if you daydream out the window for 1 minute, you might come back and suddenly they're onto something and you missed a key component, and they're not going to go back and do that. But with a video, say, even video has been a good thing, and an AI for sure, you can go back and say, I didn't understand that. You can go back and, what did they say 5 minutes ago? Well, I I drifted off. They said something, I drifted off, and I didn't, stay engaged the whole time. Because it's very difficult for us to stay engaged the entire time of an hour and a half lecture or something. You can go back and review those parts on a video until you understand them. The same thing with an AI, an AI engine on, for pedagogy, like you say, EdTech, educational technology, is that it can understand, this person really didn't get that concept that well. Let's go back over that and deliver it in a medicinal dose, right? Not like so much that you can't, but I can't understand it, but break it down into its smallest components and say, okay, now they understand this, now they understand that, now they understand this. And yeah, so we are at that point now. There's a great quote, the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I think that's where we're at. These tools are now starting to emerge, but it's not generally, acknowledged. And so, you have to sort of go and find where these pockets of these advanced technologies are. Soon it'll become much more advanced, much more just all over the place too. But that's where it is now. Yeah, I have a chat bot on the front end of my course too, where you can go there, and I encourage anybody to go mba-asap.com, go on there and click on the enroll now button or whatever, and it'll take you to the page. And then you can query that AI chatbot at the beginning. It's free, you don't have to do anything. And you can ask it any questions about anything really, but about the course, and it'll respond in my voice. And it's interactive, more than just a prompt. Another great tool that I've just started using that's blowing my mind in this way is Notebook LM. Are you familiar with that, Mons? Notebook LM?
No, John, I'm not.
It's well, this is exciting for for you and then for your audience here. Notebook LM is a Google tool, and it just came out, and it's kind of like ChatGPT or Claude or one of those prompt generating things. But with those tools, they're looking at the whole internet and coming to you with the prompt. What Notebook LM allows you to do is to put up material that you like. It can be websites, YouTube videos, text documents, PDFs, and you make a little notebook, and you can make 50 of these on that. And from that notebook, then you can ask queries of it, and it'll query just that material and give you responses. So for people that have lots and lots of stuff that they find interesting and all, and you make notes or whatever, and you say, oh, I want to save this website, and that's a cool website. Oh, gee, that YouTube video I watched was really, informative. And you have all this stuff, but you can't really, it's hard to organize it all. This is a fantastic tool for taking all that stuff and organizing it in ways that then you can query it for threads that go across all of that kind of content that you have. And another thing that they just introduced in September, right? So this is brand new, in the last 3 months or whatever, is a button called podcast. And it'll take all that content that you put in there, and it'll generate a podcast for you. And what it does is it has two people conversationally talking about that material, and in maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and it does it in a concise, eloquent way with really natural sounding voices. It's a male and a female voice, and it's just remarkable. And what I've been doing is putting PDFs of my books one at a time into a little notebook and say, create a podcast. And it creates a 20-minute podcast talking about my book, where they're talking about all the topics and all the points in there. And I'm like, they're explaining it better than I can explain it, And I wrote the thing. And it's really just remarkable. What a tool, And so I'm taking those podcasts and turning them into little videos and uploading them to YouTube and sharing them with my email list and things so that it's a way for people to consume my material instead of reading a book that might take you 8 hours to read or something. Here's a way you can put on your ear pods and you're on the subway or driving in your car or whatever, and commuting to work. You have 15 minutes and you can consume this whole book in a meaningful way. And so it's an incredible way to get the information when you have downtime, time that maybe you wouldn't be for learning, and all of a sudden you can learn something like that in that amount of time. And I have to tell you that I've listened to the podcasts, and they are really, really good. It's like, this is an incredible way to digest and consume this material quickly, and then you go back and read the whole book, or even as a way to remember what you read or something. Just remarkable tools. Unbelievable how fast this is happening. So, as you say, Mons, AI tools that can diagnose where we're at, what we know and what we don't know, and then address our blind spots. We're just about there. In a general sense, that might take longer, like artificial general intelligence. But wouldn't that be great if, because we know from the works of, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky and all, that we have all these, biases in our mind, these heuristics that are shortcuts so we can understand the world, like confirmation bias and proximity bias. But those things can be blind spots for us when we're trying to interact with the world. And wouldn't it be wonderful to have an AI companion that could tell us, you know what, you're going to make this decision, but you haven't thought about this piece of it, because that's something that's a blind spot to you. You don't really, and all of a sudden, oh, wow. And so we could make better decisions. We can understand. I think that those can be really great tools for us to help us to save ourselves from ourselves in a way when we are going to make a decision that hasn't taken everything into account, because we have these, our brain works through these shortcuts that can sometimes be detrimental for making a really good rational decision. It's interesting, that in chess, When Deep Blue, the IBM program, finally beat Gary Kasparov, the world champion in chess, right, the grandmaster, that was back in the 1990s. And instead of handed to Gary Kasparov, just a brilliant man, instead of getting all like, well, now, computers are better than humans at chess, so chess should not be a game anymore. He started working with computers, and it turns out with those computer programs, it turns out that a computer program like Deep Blue or a human are good, but the best at chess is the combination of the two. And they call that a centaur, which is, the half man, half horse kind of idea from mythology, that a complementary pair of a chess program, an AI, and a human, and our intuition and decision making, that complementary pair is better than a human or a computer program alone. And I think that is like a metaphor and will translate to all kinds of different areas where when we can have a artificial intelligence companion, basically, like Notebook LM is in a way starting to do, that we will make much better decisions and we'll be able to avoid a lot of pitfalls, which really is the thing, avoiding pitfalls so we don't make mistakes. We don't have to be super successful in things. We just have to avoid making catastrophic mistakes, and then we can be successful, So, and that's what Charlie Munger basically always said, Warren Buffett's partner. And I really believe that it's like not so much about hitting grand slams or really being successful, making these great investments. It's like avoiding the investments that you'll lose a bunch of money in, or avoiding something, that's a losing proposition that we didn't understand going into. So, yeah, I think we're about there. If the next 5 to 10 years, oh my gosh, who even knows? It's hard to be a futurist anymore. It's hard to make predictions about the future because we're on these exponential, curves of how computers operate, that it's not linear anymore where we go in a progress like this. It just goes way up. And it's very difficult to predict what technologies are going to converge together and make new things, and which ones are going to really ramp up an exponential, development curve, and where we will be. Will we have autonomous vehicles in the next few years? It's hard to say. If we're, it's easy to get to like 95% or even 98% of a good solution, and that last little bit, that last 5 to 2%, whatever it would be, is very, very hard in a lot of technical situations. So things that seem like, well, we're just about there, but that last little bit may take us, 10 years, or it may turn out to be intractable and we can't do it. And it's very difficult to predict those kind of things. It's difficult, like Yogi Berra said, right? It's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future.
All right. That's a really good use case. I found it very exciting and interesting. So this will lead us to the final question. What's your goal with podcasting?
My goal with podcasting? My goal with podcasting is to speak to different audiences and speak to people like you. And because you ask wonderful questions. And I think that, like they say, it's not coming up with really good solutions that's important in science or whatever. It's asking good questions. And so thank you very much, Mons, for having really good questions for me. So I love to talk about these type of things, and it gets me very excited, and I love to share it with audiences. So my real goal is, I guess, is to articulate my ideas, and then to create awareness about what I'm doing and what I'm thinking, and podcasting is just a wonderful way to do that. I mean, this is amazing. You're in Sweden, I'm in the Southwest of the United States. We can interact in this way and then produce a content that then gets distributed all over the world to your audience. And I'll also, send it out to my audiences. It's incredible technology and tools for dissemination of ideas, and then ideas pollinate, right? people hear ideas, it triggers other ideas that they have, and then they go do something. And all of those cascading dominoes, you never know what that'll lead to. And so those are kind of my goals are just to in a kindly way to disseminate ideas.
Awesome. Awesome. I really love this podcast, and I would like to say thank you to John. It's been really interesting talking about all these topics. It's over the top what I expected, and it's really a good match for this podcast. So I would like to say thank you to John, and also have a really good day to you, John.
Thank you so much, Mons. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure.